Welcome to another episode of Full Build Friday, where I try to build a character from a comic, game, or similar source using the baseline rules of Pathfinder Second Edition and the Path Builder app. We interrupt your regularly scheduled Full Build Fridays to cover the recent release of the Battlecry playtest. This playtest has added two new classes to our arsenal, the Commander and the Guardian, and I thought I would try to put together one build for each of these to kind of try to get them out to the masses. These are going together a little quicker than usual, and I don't have Path Builder to keep me on track, so forgive me if I miss a few things here and there. We're going to start with the Commander, and look to one of my favorite franchises ever to build Onslaught, Commander of the Combaticons. It warms the cold cockles of my heart to be building a Transformer, but before I start geeking out completely, we've got to establish some build goals for Alloyed Artillery Admiral. Onslaught is a tactical genius in the Decepticon forces, who has been given reign of his own unit, the Combaticons, a group with military-themed alt modes, as well as a space shuttle. A meticulous planner, Onslaught prefers a hands-off approach, so that he can sit back and watch his plans come together. But when these plans go wrong, as they often do, he doesn't hesitate to wade into battle, and demonstrate a fury that terrifies even his allies. He supplements his careful plans and plots with snares and explosives, controlling the battlefield as much as he controls the participants on it. His alternate mode is that of a long bed truck with a missile trailer, while he has alternatively wielded a sonic stun gun and a grenade launcher in his various appearances. In the Earth Wars game, his special ability calls down missile strikes in a line. Digging into the lore slightly, different stories have used different origins for him, but most are marked by betrayal. In the cartoon, he and his fellow Combaticons were imprisoned after trying to stage a coup against Megatron, and another comic had them as Autobot elite guards that fell prey to their own vices and joined with the Decepticons willingly. Our foundation is laid, so now is the time to transform and rise up! Obviously, we're going to use the Automaton ancestry here to represent our Cybertronium, as the only truly robotic option. I suppose there is an argument to be made for Android, but I'm going to judge you for doing so, and not lightly. Given his use of ranged weapons, and the ranged nature of his alt mode's integrated weapons, he'll use the Sharpshooter heritage, but he'll take Reinforced Chassis as his ancestry feat. This might seem a little counterintuitive to his heritage, but it is meant to represent the up-armored nature of his vehicular mode. His background is also more referential to his alt mode, with Cannoneer being based on his artillery-laden form. He doesn't really need an option with Warfare lore given his class, but it feels weird taking a different option for him. In addition to this lore skill, he'll become trained in athletics, and gain the hefty hauler feat from it, which I feel does still fit with his long bed alternate mode. As I said at the start of the video, we will be using the Commander class for our Chrome Combatant, which doesn't actually have a subclass for us to pick from. Instead, the Commander is able to, true to its name, command its teammates, which often uses their reactions, but to facilitate that, the Commander gains drilled reactions. This allows him to grant an extra reaction to a single ally once per round when they issue a command. They also come with Shield Block, a Commander's banner that will likely fly the Decepticon sigil, and then Tactics. Now these are the real meat of this martial master, and Onslaught gains 4 to start with. Double Team is one of his more physical options, letting him command his allies to bring down a foe, while Form Up is a mobility option. This summons his allies to him, likely to prepare for the combination into Bruticus. He continues to round out his options with Reload, since ranged combat is one of the main means that Transformers fight, and Strike Hard simply allows an ally to make a melee or ranged strike, making it a very useful option. On top of all of this, Onslaught gains a class feat, and it would be remiss of me not to take Deceptive Tactics for our Decepticon. This does also kind of fit in with the backstabbing that has been found a few times in his backstory. Commander would make Onslaught trained in warfare lore, but he already has that from his background. He does still become trained in society, and then picks up acrobatics, athletics, crafting, intimidation, stealth, and survival. Now, as the Commander is an intelligence-based class, we'll keep that statted up, but Onslaught also needs dexterity so that he can rain down suppressive fire at range. As we mobilize and move into second level, I do specifically want to stay out of using an archetype for this build, and the next one as well to show off these playtest classes. Onslaught can adjust his plans with adaptive stratagem, employing tactics depending on the foes and terrains he's fighting in. though this will become more potent as he learns additional tactics. As we talked about in his goals, Onslaught will use traps to control the battlefield, and he takes snare crafting as his skill feat so that he can assemble these and emplace them when he has the chance to do so before a battle. Onslaught uses toughness as his general feat at 3rd level. While he does prefer to stay out of combat, he's a big burly bot, and this helps to represent that. The commander's warfare expertise automatically increases his proficiency for warfare lore, and expands its use, while his actual skill increase is spent on crafting to become an expert in it. For 4th level, Onslaught takes Guiding Shot as his class feat, which allows him to place a shot that instructs his allies, based on the ranged combat common among Combaticons. For his use of bombs then, I like alchemical crafting as his skill feat so that he can create them much like how he can assemble his snares. To aid him in nighttime operations, Onslaught will take Arcane Eyes as his ancestry feat at 5th level. It is minor, but it is kind of cool that this is a dark vision ability that can be taken outside of 1st level. He'll also increase his intimidation proficiency up to expert, given that he is known to terrify even his team when enraged. Personally, I do think the commander doesn't quite get enough tactics to employ on a daily basis, so Onslaught will take efficient preparation to have more tactics at the ready. This allows him to account for the disparate personalities of the units under his command. He will also use Intimidating Glare, for when those personalities start acting out of line, and to menace his adversaries. 7th level brings quite a few nifty tricks and treats for our tin-plated tactician, starting with Incredible Initiative to help him act first, and use his tactics to close out the fight before the enemy even moves. He does finally learn another tactic and can prepare another one, and chooses to add Piranha Assault to his portfolio. This is a good one to have in reserve, and swap in with Adaptive Stratagem when facing a foe with resistances. Related to this, he becomes a master in warfare lore, and uses his regular skill increase for intimidation to become a master in that as well. The war between the Autobots and Decepticons has raged across countless planets and environments, and to that end, Onslaught takes Tactical Expansion at 8th level. This grants him 2 additional tactics, which he will spend on mountaineering training and naval training to overcome these exceptional situations. These are another fantastic pair to hold in reserve, and slip in with Adaptive Stratagem when he is faced with the terrain. His skill feat for this level will be spent on Battle Cry, possibly a traditional Decepticon cry or something more specific to the situation, and this just fits well with the book that the class is going to be in. At 9th level, he'll use Rain of Bolts for his Ancestry feat, representative of his alt node and the missile strike that he can call down in the Earth Wars game, though this does create a cone rather than a line. The skill increase he receives will go to crafting to make him a master in that one this time. This maneuver managing Martial Master makes use of Targeting Strike for his 10th level class feat, building out of Guiding Strike and letting him find a weak point for an ally to exploit, which, I will admit, does sound a little weird for a grenade launcher, but hey, let's just roll with it. Maybe he's able to lob the explosive in a spot that opens that wound in a nasty blast. We'll take a dip into his intimidation skill feats to grant him terrifying resistance, since he is a fairly resilient individual, evidenced by his alt mode and general size. One of the main benefits of a Cybertronian's transformation ability is the increase of speed it usually provides, even if it comes at a loss of maneuverability. To that end, Onslaught takes Pick Up the Pace for when he and his Combaticons convoy on the way to a target. His skill increase for this level will apply to Athletics to make him an expert in that skill. Similar to Guiding Shot is Onslaught's Fortunate Blow at 12th level. They're almost too similar if I'm being honest, making it difficult to tell when to use one over the other. Though Fortunate Blow will at least take precedence against creatures immune to precision damage. They're both single action, so I guess it comes down to preference, or somebody better at figuring out the numbers than me. Our Titanium Tactician then takes Terrified Retreat as his skill feat to send his foes running for the hills whenever he critically succeeds at a Demoralize. Regrettably, there isn't anything particularly enticing at 13th level, but it does give Onslaught a good opportunity to take Lesser Augmentation, which will be used for Reinforced Chassis. This gives him a reaction that he can just spend to attempt to turn a crit into a regular hit. Even if it's a high DC, it's always nice to take the chance to preserve that health. As with his last skill increase, he'll take it in Athletics again to become a Master. With the idea that the Combaticons are very combat capable and likely have reactions of their own, Onslaught takes Drilled Reflexes as his 14th level class feat, allowing him to grant an additional reaction to one of his allies when he uses a tactic. He'll use Intimidating Prowess as his skill feat then, to enhance his ability to demoralize enemies, and hopefully send them running for those hills through his previous skill feat. Even if our boisterous Bossa Nova can't break their bionic bodies, shattering their spirit and spark will suffice. For a slightly sillier option, Onslaught uses Fleet as his 15th level general feat, since he does have a vehicular alt mode. That is honestly the entire reasoning behind this choice. However, somewhat more exciting is his Master Tactician, which makes him a legend in Warfare lore, gives him a 4th tactic to prepare a day, +1 from efficient preparations, and then finally teaches him another tactic. Our gloriously girded general grabs ready, aim, fire, to once more play into the military alt mode of his companions, as well as their general preference for ranged combat. This is kind of a crazy one in my opinion, because while it requires the commander to spend 2 actions and everybody else to use up their reaction, it lets them interact to swap to a ranged weapon, interact to reload it, and then make a strike on top of that. The action economy of this ability is absolutely not in shambles. This is flourishing. As a final benefit of this level up, Onslaught also becomes a legend in Intimidation. As one of the probably less neurotic Decepticons, Onslaught is focused on his goals over his own glory, and that lends to me taking Undaunted Discipline as his class feat at 16th level. I think this might play a little bit into him bucking the command of others, but does generally feel appropriate for this tin-plated tyrant. As part of that, his skill feat will be spent on Scare to Death, due to the fact that it is the single coolest feat in the entire game, no questions asked. Coming into 17th level, there were 2 options I had debated, both lending to his alternate mode concept. However, given that this is a martial class that, for some reason, becomes a legend in its class proficiency, it felt like a good opportunity to take greater augmentation for his Rain of Bolts. Doing so changes the frequency to once per hour, increases the damage to 12d6, and then lets you have it be counted as adamantine, cold iron, or silver whenever you use it. It is honestly a very solid enhancement, and might be one of the better ones in my opinion. His skill increase goes to athletics to make him a legend, as we start coming into this build's final stretch. Once more, we're going to take Tactical Expansion, because there's a few I regret not working into the build, though one of them is a Master Tactic, limiting when we could grab it. Lower on the totem pole is End It, which is a similar concept to taking Terrified Retreat. Though, I imagine given the nasty nature of the Decepticons, fleeing enemies are what they call target practice. As for his higher level tactic, Demoralizing Charge lets a pair of allies, likely Brawl and Vortex, close in on a foe and then make a strike against them. Interestingly, while this does require them to end adjacent to the enemy, it doesn't specify a melee strike. Either way, this can then leave an enemy frightened, depending on a save against Onslaught's class DC, crushing the wills of his enemies through superior tactics, i.e. telling his goons to smack the spark out of suckers. For his skill feat, he will take Legendary Professional. Onslaught and the others prove a little mercenary at times, as seen when they worked for a North Korean dictator in the IDW comics, and this lets him sell his talents as a tactician to the highest bidder. With the range of battlefields our metallic martial mastermind has managed, Untrained Improvisation as his final general feat at 19th level feels like a decent fit, letting him try his hand at a multitude of skills as needed. From his class features though, comes Legendary Tactician, granting him both another tactic he can prepare, and another plot to place in his perfidious portfolio. Obviously, given the range stratagems of our sinister squad, we take Executioner's Volley. Now, part of this that I like, and feels kind of appropriate, is that all the members of the team affected by this combine their damage. Almost say, like how a certain crew combines into the colossal Bruticus? Alright, it's, I admit, a bit of a stretch, but it is as close as we're going to get here. Less interesting, but still relevant, is another skill increase, which will make Onslaught a legend in crafting, solely for the sake of his snares and such. The commander has 2 cool capstone class feats that both offer some major buffs to the entire team, but given the aggressive nature of the Decepticons in general, I felt that Onslaught was better suited to Pennant of Victory. This one takes an action to trigger and only lasts for a single round, but a +4 status bonus to attack is massive, no matter what level you are, and the other benefits are nothing to sneeze at either. It is such an awesome option, it almost makes me feel a little bad for taking Quick Jump next to it as a skill feat. This enhances Onslaught's mobility a tiny bit, but I'm honestly hoping that the fully published Battlecry will present more deception feats that he can take advantage of with his deceptive tactics. Until then, that covers our curmudgeonly Combaticon commander. So let's talk about what we're looking for in a free archetype game. I think you could look a little bit into a gunslinger dedication with reload and attack options, maybe even a munitions crafter, but I honestly think the best way to go is for the sniping duo dedication. He'll probably want to swap to a non-scatter weapon, or at least get his spotter a backfire mantle, but the damage bonus this grants is circumstance, which means that it stacks with the precision damage of his targeting strike. Further feats such as cover fire, triangulate, and exploit opening all play into his strategic style, while enhancing his combat capability with a single squad mate, which he can switch around by taking some time between fights. With that, we've put our plans into place, so let's go ahead and review our strategy for conquering this build. Onslaught is a sharpshooter automaton commander, with the cannoneer background serving to reference his membership in the militant combaticons, as well as his missile launching alternate mode. As a tactical genius who prefers to watch his plans unfold, he uses the commander class with a ranged weapon, which lends itself to guiding shot and targeting shot. As a member of the Decepticons, he readily makes use of deceptive tactics, and strikes fear into the hearts of his enemies, and sometimes his allies, both through his investment in intimidation, as well as tactics such as demoralizing charge and end it. Rain of Bolts helps to reference the missiles of his long bed truck with the trailer, as well as the lines he lays down in Earth Wars. His weapon of choice, the blunderbuss, is also a reference to that game and the grenade launcher he wields in it. He further controls the battlefield through traps, snares, and explosives, built through his alchemical and snare crafting feats, though he does actually need to spend the time to assemble them. As the Decepticon, Onslaught favors aggressive tactics, such as strike hard, ready aim fire, and Pennant of Victory to decimate his enemies. Adorned in alloy and achievements, this aggressive automaton annihilates adversaries in all-out assaults, aided by allies acquiescing to his ample advice. I love trying to bring Transformers into Pathfinder, because I haven't had a chance to play the actual Transformers RPG, and I eagerly await Starfinder 2E, which will almost assuredly make that easier. Until then, let me know what you think of this build and what other builds you might like to see in a comment below. To see more character sheets and level by level item choices, be sure to check out the build on the Monster Monday blog, or take a look at the Twitter, both of which are linked in the description. See you next week for a Guardian build, and have a fantastic Friday.
We need to take control of this ship! Combaticons, combine into Bruticus!